for everybody being here. I appreciate your interest and your focus on this work and this topic. I want to introduce a couple of friends of mine that are with me here as well today. Chris Halverson has been a longtime friend. He was chaplain in the U.S. Senate. His dad was a longtime chaplain in the U.S. Senate, Dick Halverson. Some of you may remember Dick or Chris. Chris, good to have you here. And then a new friend of mine, relatively new, but is a great friend, Marvin Smith from Southern California, is here. And he and I are talking about going to Nigeria together because of the persecuted church. I'm glad to have Marvin here as well. We've got a global religious war going on now. Maybe the best way to describe the overall situation. I don't want to overstate it. It's a cold war in a lot of places. It's a hot war in some places. But it is a war, and there is just a spirit of religion that's fighting in many places. I just got back a couple weeks ago from Bangladesh, where you had a group pushed out of a country of a different faith. In that case, it was initially, it's been Buddhists pushing out Muslims. Buddhists are now pushing the Christians out in the northern part, and have been for some period of time. It doesn't usually stop with one faith. It goes lots of different places. I was on the phone this morning with a man from Nigeria who didn't feel like he could speak freely over the phone, or was afraid of what information may be heard. But 2 weeks ago, we had a gentleman from Nigeria that morning, 17 people in his hometown outside his church had been killed. Outside of his home church, 17 killed. And he handed me there a certificate that would be kind of like you would see if you graduated from church camp or something, a little certificate that a lot of places would give, that was charred because the church had been burnt down, and this was something that was pulled out of the fire. These are not uncommon stories. And then who can forget the vivid image of the 21 Coptic Christians, orange bags over their heads, being beheaded. For what? For being Christians. This, unfortunately, is the things that go on in the world today, and these are the ones you know about. There are lots of them that you don't know about. There's by far a majority of the world lives in an atmosphere that is not religiously free, and in many cases an active level of persecution, and in some cases a deadly level of persecution that's happening today in the world. And that's what's taking place. Now there are lots of groups now forming up to push back against this. I think that's important. This is a group here that's doing that. Thank you for being a part of this. I think it's critically important that you do. There are opportunities for positive things to be happening in the world today. The Saudi Arabia, that in many cases in the past has pushed a very high level of export of a radicalism. The new Crown Prince is saying, nope, we're stopping this. We're not going to be doing this. Everybody's kind of tracking and seeing, is that true or not? Everybody wishes him well and wants to see this taking place. I think that's a very encouraging sign of what's happening. I've got countries now that are lining up to embrace religious freedom as a roadmap that haven't been there before. And the nice thing, it's not really nice about it, but we have been on a track before it's a name and shame approach that we had gone as the United States government. And in the bill that we'd passed, the primary tool was the International Religious Freedom Report, which will be out yet this month, I hope. It's pretty close to being completely wrapped up. I hope to be presented by the Secretary of State. But it was kind of a name and shame approach. You did this, it's wrong, and we're going to try to shame you into it. And that, a lot of people don't respond well to that. The countries that are lining up more now are off of different reasons. One is we want to grow our economy. And we find that if we want to grow our economy, we need to embrace more freedom. That a basic freedom and a freedom of religion, which is a basic freedom that you can build a number of other freedoms off of, but it's a basic freedom. If you have this one, you will generally have a number of other freedoms. If you don't have this one, you won't generally have a number of other freedoms. They're finding that, and it's in the economic data, if you want to grow your economy, you need to be religiously free. You need to be tolerant of other people's views and life. And being tolerant, as you know, is not enough. You got to love the other person. I had a friend of mine point that out to me, and I thought, well, it's hard enough doing what we're doing without you asking me to love this person. But did this go off? No, it's still on. So we're seeing that off of economic growth. And the other one is, it's in the data now, if you want less terrorism, help and support more religious freedom. Is this on? Okay, good. I want to make sure I wasn't hearing it very well. So we've got other tools now that are growing and that I want to see us expand with the use of them. Not just the name and shame approach. We will continue to do the Religious Freedom Report. We will continue to have countries of particular concern and entities of particular concern. I think all that's important and good. We're going to start growing, I think, more as we get countries to believe and to see that if you want less terrorism, you need more religious freedom. If you want more economic growth, you need more religious freedom. And that they embrace that tactic. And we're going to be pushing that a lot more. There's other good news to be able to point out. This administration is strongly focused on religious freedom, and you're going to continue to see that push and that taking place. I was recruited into this job by the Vice President. He is very much for religious freedom, as is the President. The President raises this in various meetings. Got a pastor in Turkey that's in jail, Andrew Brunson, on the most specious of charges. In my background, I used to be a lawyer. I used to do some defense work. I'd look at the case and the information and the charges, the actual information against him, and I think we'd have this guy off in 5 minutes in the U.S. But he is still in a Turkish prison. The President raises this regularly when he talks with President Erdogan. This is a point of high interest and focus and concern of what can we do and what other tools can we bring to bring pressure to bear on Turkey for illegally, without a legitimate claim, keep this man in jail. This administration is going to continue to push the issue of religious freedom, or in northern Iraq to try to rebuild areas where Christians and Yazidis, where a genocide was conducted against them, and we're trying and hoping to be able to get people in a secure enough atmosphere, in a secure enough way that they can move back to their ancient homelands. Frank Wolf's going to speak a little later on, I think, to your group, has talked often about Christians being run out of the Middle East. I was with a Syrian group the other day, and one of the ladies was pointing out in her dad's day, and she's a woman of mid-50s, it was about 20% Christian in Syria. Now it's 2%, and Christians being further persecuted in that region. One of the things we have to fight for is hopefully that the overall conflict will be resolved, but when that takes place, that there is a guarantee in the public, in the culture, and in the Constitution for pluralism, that people can be of other faiths or no faith at all and not be persecuted, period. This is a God-given right, and it needs to be maintained and needs to be protected in Constitution and in practice. We're seeing in some places where there are laws in place that are good, good on the books, but the culture doesn't tolerate religious pluralism. It doesn't tolerate people that are outside of the dominant faith, and we've got to push there. Long and the short of it is, it's a tough and a tense time. There are reasons to hope, and there's no time like the present to push. So I ask for a couple things from you. Number one is to start off in prayer. I mean, really submit these things to prayer, and whatever's pulled on your heart, and whoever it is, if it's Christians in India or China or other places around the world, or Nigeria, or there's plenty of places to pray about, that really be a prayer, a sincere prayer of your hearts that you pursue and that you lean into, and you ask your friends and people on your prayer network to pray about this. Research, get to know the topic, get to know the country, the area, and really pray into it. The second is to activate. This is one of the ideas, I guess, really, of the concept of a prayer circle, is once you start praying on something, you don't just stop there. You start then, it starts pulling your heart for you to do something. Maybe it's being a part of a group like this. Maybe it's organizing one locally. We have every Tuesday here, 11 to noon, the Religious Freedom Roundtable meets on the Hill often, sometimes at State Department. We're moving it around. But if some of you are around Washington, D.C., get engaged in this group, and you'll find a lot of different groups there that are engaged in religious freedom. Organize yourself, but be active and get active. Then I'd say pray again, because we just really, really need that. It's a key time, ladies and gentlemen. There's more persecution going on now than a number of authorities have said than any time in the history where we've had recorded history. And maybe part of that is just the global engagement. There's so much more, and before the lines were divided of this group's here or there. I don't think so. Honestly, I just think there's just more division over this topic, and religion, instead of becoming a lesser issue, which I think the West always thought all along would become, we'd become more of a reason-oriented people and less of a faith-oriented people. Faith has grown. It's gotten bigger, not less, which is great. But then there's gotten to be more conflict, and pray through that. So thanks for letting me join you, Mark and Faith. I appreciate you guys letting me be a part of this. And best to you on your conference.